Because there's nobody on Monday Night Football that I want to watch.
Yeah.
We should start that, do you want to be a council member for a day program? See if it wants to-
I'm waiting for my laptop. Do you got 6?
I got 5:59. 6 on my phone.
Okay,
No.
I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda that's presented to you. I would take a motion unless if somebody has any changes.
So moved.
It's been a motion by Sean. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bruce. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, the consent agenda, I would take a motion to approve if anybody doesn't have any questions.
So moved.
I'll second.
Bruce made the motion, seconded by Maggie. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At this time, the public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. If somebody wants to come up and speak to the council on a matter that's not on the agenda. Yes, sir.
I have a copy of my speech. Did I give it to you guys?
And who are you?
Well, I'm Brian Paulson. I'll go up there, but that's just what I'm gonna say, so.
Yeah, but this is a public forum that's not on the agenda.
Yes.
Are you gonna speak to?
Something not on the agenda.
Okay, good,
Yes.
thank you.
So my name is Brian Paulson, 206 4th Street Southwest, Mayor, members of the council. At the last council meeting, it was mentioned that housing or down payments were unaffordable in New Prague. The Minnesota Post reported in 2019, a study by Housing First Minnesota, a trade group that represents builders, found that regulations can contribute up to a third of cost of housing, building housing in Twin Cities. That varies by community, but generally they found that the Minnesota regulations added more cost to construction than it does in Wisconsin or Illinois. Quote, we literally found you could build an identical house with an identical builder, identical trade partners, the material being purchased by a national builder who builds nationwide. You can build the same house in Hudson, Wisconsin for $47,000 less than in Lake Elmo, just across the river. Dave Siegel, the group's executive director, unquote. So that's 2019 dollars. Many of the reasons for the increasing housing costs are out of the council's control, but let's take a closer look at a couple of recent examples of missed opportunities. At the last council meeting, the cost of housing was mentioned both, they mentioned an ordinance amendment to require sidewalks on both sides of the road for new constructions was introduced. The planning director said that this is a cost that the developer pays. Yes, that is, and then the expenses is passed on to the home buyer. It was stated that it's easier to do it this way than deal with the pushback from the homeowners not walking sidewalks. This is an example where the council is directly responsible for an increase of cost of new homes. The first reading, this ordinance amendment passed 5-0. Tonight, will you vote for a second reading? Will this council vote to increase the cost of new homes? Another cost that's passed on to residents is the rental licensing ordinance. This requires any rentals register with the city and have inspections to get a license. That's $100 per building and $25 per unit with renewal inspections. Some of the other things that the city checks for, or that they check for in this, is weeds, a heat source when this is being done in the winter, flushing toilets, weekly trash collection, and rodent infestations. The city has stated that this is for the health and safety in the meetings, but the purpose section of this ordinance read that the rental is decent, safe, and sanitary and is operated and maintained so as not to become an influence that fosters blight and deterioration or creates a disincentive for reinvestment in the community. then why not impose it on all residents? This is just two examples that the council has imposed. It causes increase in housing. A few more from the fees section I found interesting was the overnight parking permit, a dance permit, the annual dog license, and this is not related to the dog park, golf cart and UTV permit, second kitchen permit, bed and breakfast permit, sidewalk fee, 10 pages of fees and permits. These are all regulations imposed on us in addition to the federal, state, and county regulations. The regulations are ever expanding. If you won't repeal them, at least stop passing new ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else want to speak to the council on a matter that's not on the agenda? Yep, come on up.
So, I'm Joel Wallen. I live at 716 Main Street. I spoke here 2 weeks ago. I don't really want to be here, and I don't want to give this speech, but here we are. So, you guys and the school board have both approved a tax abatement for a 54-unit apartment complex on Chalupski Avenue. 3 weeks ago, the Seward County Commissioners defeated a county tax abatement on that same project in a 4-0 vote. Commissioner David Glazinski, in a move that showed tremendous personal integrity, abstained from that vote, citing personal connections to Marv Deutsch and Deutsch Construction, the company that owns that property and one of the partners on that project. At the last city council meeting, Eber Development admitted that they get a tax abatement for all of their projects. They also admitted that they would build this project either way, whether the request was approved or not. Now, this contradicts City Administrator Josh Tetzloff's assertion that Ebert told him that the project would not move forward without an abatement, and I understand that Ebert threw you under the bus. Of course, that's not the only reason that tax abatements are creating so much controversy. Commissioner Glazinski seemed to understand that when someone who has personal connections to the community asks for special tax treatment, the public will likely infer that an improper relationship or some other undue influence might exist, whether it actually does or not. Unfortunately, neither this chamber nor the school board seems to realize this, and thus they have opened themselves and our city employees up to additional criticism and scrutiny. This criticism is fair because of a lack of transparency in how these things are decided. Unfortunately, we have no written policies in either body that govern how tax incentives are doled out. When Councilmember Ryan asked whether the arbitrary and capricious appearance of this decision could expose the city to a lawsuit or someone else to be denied, Josh was quick to point out that under the law, you can give an abatement for any reason at all or for no reason whatsoever. This is not coherent tax policy, and it appears that it appears arbitrary and capricious to the public as well, and it leads the public to wonder whether the type of relationship that Mr. Glazinski expressed concerns about exists here or at the school board. I'd like to think that they don't, but nothing short of a data request is really going to resolve those questions. And I sincerely hope that when we do get our data request, no evidence of impropriety is found. Of course, this entire controversy could have been avoided had the council and school board done one thing, and that is to implement a clear and objective tax incentive policy. A good tax incentive policy will identify specific growth objectives that the city and school board are trying to accomplish and set quantifiable standards that those tax incentives should achieve. That policy would then limit tax incentives to projects that meet those goals, rather than just sprinkling tax abatements around to any developer who is smart enough to ask for one. My understanding is that Josh has asked the city council for this, and apparently it hasn't been a priority. Now, for that, I commend Josh. However, his deep involvement in getting the Ebert development passed by advocating it at the county and the school board has only served to add fuel to concerns that something shady has happened here. Therefore, while I realize that the Ebert matter has been decided, I would urge both the city and the school district to reconsider it and further to place a moratorium on new tax abatements until specific, articulable, meaningful, and measurable policy goals are implemented for all new tax incentives. These policies should consider the needs of the city and the school district and the tax burden our citizens are already required to bear and quantifiable standards that tax abatements should accomplish. You owe it to yourselves, you owe it to the city employees, quite frankly, you owe it to the developers, and you certainly owe it to the public for the sake of transparency. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, anybody else want to speak on the open forum Otherwise, we'll move on to the next item, which is the city engineer's project update. Nothing? No, he's not on? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Next item up for bid, or up for bid. Next item up is, the public hearing on the tax abatement for Yellow Tree, a 155 unit apartment building. So with that, Josh, you gonna start it off with a presentation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So, tonight, I'd like to give you a quick presentation here on the abatement hearing before us. A little bit of the details on this project. This is for a proposed apartment building east of Raven Stream Elementary School. The size is roughly a 4.5 acre lot, currently zoned as PUD, allowing for townhomes. Now, of note, our recently approved comprehensive plan does call for high-density housing in this area, though a zone change would need to happen to formally match up with the comprehensive plan. The latest details that we have on this project are a little bit different than what was initially proposed and we were talking about. Currently it's showing as 166 units with about 13 alcove or studio, 52 one-bedroom, 49 one-bedroom with den, 42 two-bedroom, and 10 three-bedroom units. Ultimately, from what we've heard, rents are ranging anywhere from $1,275 up above $2,000. And we know that all public utilities are currently existing around the area, so there'd be no upsizing of utilities needed. And finally, again, the developer has indicated to staff that without the abatement, the project just isn't feasible. As I stated, this is a change in the project details, increasing the amount of potential units, and I'll kind of get to that later as we go through here. So ultimately, for this project, the developer is requesting a 75% tax abatement over 15 years. Unlike the last abatement considered, this would be the same abatement over the life of the project up to a maximum of $2,072,894, or about $38,000 a year. At this time, the request is for city participation only and does not include either the county or the school district. And there is no other assistance being requested. Now, of note, estimated values for this project coming from Scott County don't include any what would be considered high-end amenities. They did specifically say when they were doing the valuation that they were basing it more off of basic living quarters, and if any high-end amenities were added, that would be a developer's choice and would likely increase valuation, but would not affect the maximum amount abated under these particular requested terms. So why should the city consider another tax abatement? Some of this is information we've talked about, but basically we haven't had any new apartments built in the last 30 years, even though the population's doubled, and a study from Scott County does show a significant need. EDA has heard from almost every area of business that it is extremely difficult to find new local employees, and in fact the city has felt this from some employees that we've offered positions to that have actually turned us down because they weren't able to find apartments or local housing to move into immediately. Ultimately, 54 units that was recently approved would help, but for the number of over 600 total units needed would put only a minor dent in that total. Is the city going to keep abating apartments into the future? I do think that the city should consider the needs of the community at the time of a request. And I do believe that this abatement or these apartments would certainly help meet that need. I don't know if I would recommend another one after this, but as for this, I guess, as has been stated, we are kind of considering this particular project at this time. So how are the benefits from this one different than the previously proposed project? This particular project, the previous project asked for 66% over 15 years with a graduated step down. As I said, this one is at 75% over 15 years. With this particular project, at this request, the city would be collecting 25% taxes right off the bat, which current estimates are about $46,000 a year. And that does not factor in rising inflation. This particular project also has more 2 and 3 bedroom units, being a little more conducive to slightly larger families. And compared to the previous project, this one is marketing to a different demographic. They're looking at a slightly higher income demographic with this particular project. So benefits to the city, and these are based off of original details when we were looking at the 155 units. But at that time, the sanitary sewer was looking at a little over $1.1 million in fees collected, water a little over $200,000, a water area charge of $13,000, park dedication of $192,000, building permit fees of over $200,000, totaling up over $1.7 million in fees versus the over $500,000 for the previous one. We'd also be looking at over $77,000 in profit per year for our utilities, or $66,000 in utilities, as well as just $77,000 in fees collected. So as I said, again, their abatement request for this one is 75% over 15 years, up to a maximum of a little over $2 million. And ultimately down to my recommendation. Now, I mentioned that we do have a lack of housing, and I do believe a successful second project will provide a strong footing for area business to attract area businesses and retain talent, and hopefully would be a driver to attract future growth. This project would provide immediate tax base along with a future tax base, and statistically would add over 270 people, over which single-family homes, it would require us 105 single-family homes on 40 acres with over a mile of construction to do the same. It would potentially provide 15 to 22 students, which would provide over $150,000 up to $180,000 in annual funding for the school district. And it would provide $1.5 million in fees to help the city maintain infrastructure, not including any annual utility usage. This all being said, I do recommend we hold this public hearing, but not deciding on a resolution at this time. Working with Baker Tilly, there does seem to be a need that exists, but due to kind of the changes that we've heard in the number of units, we have not received an updated pro forma, I guess, on what those project details are, and so I don't really feel comfortable recommending action formally tonight until we receive that. And I guess I would ask that we end up tabling any sort of action and that you allow staff more time to collect information and hopefully return with a recommendation at that time. So, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, does the council have any questions of Josh, or any questions before I open the public hearing?
I will say, developer Yellow Tree is here, and they do have a presentation they would like to share with you as well. So
Okay, I'll let you do that now.
There you go. Good. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thanks again for having me. I do think it's important to provide you some updates and also some context, both kind of on who we are, our project, both for your use, in addition for the public record, and also, you know, the residents and your constituents that have a lot of interest in this project and kind of wondering why. I don't want to go into any of the financial stuff again. It doesn't mean a whole lot coming from me based upon what our need is, but we do rely on your hired third party to kind of look at our project and confirm that this project isn't viable without the city assistance. Again, this is a representation. This is a similar project, one that we have in the works, but you know, probably consistent with the type of product that we're looking to provide in your community. I'm going to give a quick recap, just an intro. And then, you know, kind of why we were intrigued by your community. We actually were given a referral by another city that we were working with, kind of under similar circumstances, who had a desperate need for housing. And then, you know, understood that a lot of the similarities with the strength of your community, the housing that hasn't been provided, that we started to look at your town. So, you know, we're hopeful for that public-private partnership. I know it's a difficult decision and one that you guys have to make, but ultimately we're hopeful to invest in your community and provide the type of housing that we like to do all across the metro. Quick intro. So Yellow Tree, we're a small multifamily developer. We work throughout the 7-county metro, and we focus on market rate housing. We don't do affordable or designated affordable, and we don't exclusively do high-end luxury, where it's only, you know, high rents, high amenitized buildings. But with that being said, certainly we do find a value of the quality of the product. It's a product that we own, that we invest in, and we're a fully integrated developer. So we do everything from, you know, looking at the sites, land acquisition, the design, working with the city, neighborhood groups. We have in-house construction, and then we manage our own properties as well. All right. Next, just kind of a background information, kind of the stance of your housing market. I presume that some of you know some of these facts. A lot of them were mentioned in your 2022 study and kind of reinforced in our private 2024 study. But like as was mentioned before, the market rate housing, the last one was in 1994 and it was 48 units. That was actually a LIHTC project that expired and is now market rate housing. But then prior to that, you had to go back to 1986, 1977, and 1972, which provided 116 of your total units for market rate housing. A couple interesting facts and kind of things that we look at when we, you know, look at a project, the performance, viability, and things that we were drawn to and quite frankly of concern is that only 18% of your residents who live in New Prague are renters. Kind of a considered balance between, you know, for sale housing and rental housing is about 35%, which you haven't had since the middle 1990s. That's kind of been going, like you alluded to, your population has more than doubled, but the housing for rent has not followed that trend. 8% of your households making the area median income or above are renters. That's very surprising. So almost half of your renters are making between 100 and 150,000. That's also something we don't find in common, kind of relating to the fact that there's a need kind of across all demographics, not just entry point rental housing. A few other, obviously you can read through, and then the last one of note is as of this morning, our property managers were able to find 3 available units for rent of your 771 units. There is 1 twin home, there was a 60, I think it was a 62 plus, and there was 1 apartment building, which converts into a 0.4% vacancy. You need roughly a 2% vacancy just to kind of flow tenants from one building. They move out of one, they have to move to another, et cetera, which you're well behind. So our study has an immediate need of 242 units, which our units obviously is less than the 242 that you guys have an immediate need for, which is a backlog of your current to get to a balanced, and then, you know, additional residents that come in. So ultimately, it's not so much, and you know, there's concerns of what does New Prague, you know, what is it, where does it want to go, and what does it want to provide? We respect those concerns and things that you have to deal with. But essentially, this project is solely to meet your current and surrounding residents and buildings needs within the community. Staff went through a lot of the impacts that we have outside of our tax abatement, which there's many as far as the fees, but there's also, you know, we're looking at 20 to 25 school-age children coming to the community that would live within our building. And there's certainly added benefits that go along when you make your decision about is tax abatement appropriate for this. Okay, just quickly, again, I don't want to take all your time, but housing that we deliver, what are you getting? How do you know that this type of housing is consistent with what you guys want within your community and kind of meets the needs? So we intentionally design homes that are accessible to a wide range of ages, incomes, and family types. So like you mentioned, we have alcoves, one bedrooms, stands, 2 bedrooms, and we have 3 bedrooms as a part of this project, which I think allows us to market across kind of the swath of your housing needs, and then also provide a very good mix within the building. So it's providing everything down to individuals making 45,000, which covers police, fire, teachers, large amount of the service workers, but then also there's certainly families, young professionals. We're hearing a lot for people that want to downsize and stay within the community. And then finally, young individuals looking to stay in the community, as well as older and retired individuals that are looking to downsize and stay within the community. That one kind of hits home. My parents actually just went through this, not in this community, but they moved off the homestead, or off the farm, and they wanted to stay obviously within the community, but there wasn't any housing, so they had to go to the neighboring town, and that's where we're living now. So we hear a lot of that, just because of the housing isn't being provided to allow people to stay within their community, and they don't want a 20-acre homestead. This is just information for the public record, so we like projects that both engaged within our building, provide a sense of community, but also engage with a larger community as well. So part of the public record, this is things that we manage when we do our buildings. And then we also reach out to the immediate neighbors and then give opportunities to engage within the community. Project updates, I want to talk about this because he alluded to the fact that we took your comments from the previous meeting, and we are looking to come back with what the intent of our project is and how that, we can take a lower reduction and still have a viable project. That was a very difficult ask. Here's our approach. As you notice, the apartment project is to the south of the lot, extending away from the single-family, multifamily homes. This is the piece that we're looking for the tax abatement that would provide the additional 165, 167 units with the amenities, parking that's required kind of within the guidelines of your updated comp plan. We will plat out the north side of the home, of the 5 acres. That would provide kind of a transition of, it can be row homes, townhomes, or something that's more consistent with the immediate properties to the north. We are looking for no help on that side of the project, and that's going to be, consistent with a for sale or potentially a for rent product. If there's any questions about the revised plan and how that lays out, I can answer those, or you can come up after public comments as well.
Okay. Council have any questions for him?
Not at this time.
The townhome portion, was that not anticipated originally?
It was not. No, it was not.
What was in that area?
So we utilized the entire apartment building on the site. So we needed to do 2 things. We needed to provide, there's the utilities that go onto the site, and also needed potentially stormwater concerns. But we had to solve for 2 problems for the viability of the reduced reduction. One of them is we needed slightly larger scale. The 56th, 57th, 58th, all the way to the 67th apartment is marginally less because you're paying for the same, you already have the same footing, foundation, utilities coming into the site, et cetera. So we needed slightly larger scale. And then we also needed to split some of the utilities that come just off the curb for this additional housing component. Meeting with the architects and working on this fit plan, it's also good urban design to kind of have a transition between, twin homes and then a 4-story apartment building. So this will kind of provide that buffer, and then, the dense guidance for the housing use to the south of us as well.
Is this a diagram of the whole 5 acres
It is, yep.
concept? So,
Yep, the water tower is just to the northeast.
so there's no water retention required in this area?
So we're not at a level that has been determined. If we can provide some on site, that's likely. There is a low dip. You're in an area New Prague is specifically excluded from some of the requirements to do with New Prague. We're not sure why that is, but we also haven't spent the resources to determine what it would be required and how we would handle our stormwater.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
So at this time, I'll open the public hearing, and if anybody wants to come up here and speak to this project, you're more than welcome. You need to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the council about your thoughts. So, anybody want to come up and speak? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Brooke Stika, 101 East Main Street. Good evening, members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here on behalf of the New Prague Chamber to ask that you consider an approval of the abatement request from Yellow Tree. One of our board members was here a couple of weeks ago to share why we feel both housing developments are vital for our community. Just a brief recap. First, our businesses depend on accessible housing options for their employees. A thriving workforce is essential to our local economy, and without adequate housing, we risk losing valuable talent to neighboring areas. Second, development is crucial for sustaining our economy and ensuring that our community continues to thrive. We've seen firsthand how challenging it can be for individuals and families to find housing in New Prague. The Chamber receives multiple calls from people looking to move here, whether they're relocating for work, downsizing, or simply seeking a new home. We often have to tell them that the options are limited. This is a signal that our community is growing and developers are taking notice of that. I understand that there may be concerns about whether our community can fill these new housing units. While I'm not an expert on housing markets, I trust that developers like Yellow Tree are doing their homework. They're conducting research and analysis, and if they didn't believe that they could fill these units, they wouldn't be investing in our community. New development is a win for us. Right now, available land sits vacant, and as a result, tax revenue is not coming in. By providing a bit of support to these developers, we can help grow our tax base long-term and provide much-needed housing for those who seek it. If we continue to give developers the impression that New Prague isn't welcoming to growth, we risk stifling future investment as well. We do believe that this project is needed alongside the 55 unit already in the works. If there were a third developer seeking an abatement in the next couple of months, I would not bug you again, but this I do feel is needed. So I ask you to consider approving this abatement request. It represents another step forward for our community, and it will set a path of growth and opportunity for the future. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Brooke. Anybody else want to come up and speak? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Austin Revel, 410 Main Street. I've had the honor of serving on the EDA board for 1.5 years, as well as the Chamber of Commerce for 2 years, and own a business here in town that we've been obviously making a sizable investment. With this, I have been fortunate enough to get to know many of the business leaders here in town. It's been a real pleasure getting to know them and hear some of their needs. And when it comes to our EDA visits, specifically the BR&E visits, we get two consistent answers when we ask them what is it that they need from the city or the general amenities that they require in order to have successful business. It's housing, and they would like, of course, other like food options. All this is population based, of course. If you don't have the buildings to come in, you can't retain your employees. If you don't have a larger population, you can't entice other amenities to come to town. So I think that projects such as this would be helpful in achieving both of these goals. One of the things that sitting on the EDA board that I am aware of is that we are 677 units short estimated by Scott County in rental properties over the next decade. While these obviously two projects that we have talked about, this one today and the one 3 weeks ago, won't necessarily fully cover that, it will make a sizable dent in the need. And the way things are going, it could even be a low estimate at 677 units. There is a changing market out there too, just based on rates and cost. You know, me and my wife were very fortunate to get in a home several years ago when rates were a lot better. These days, houses are largely unaffordable, unfortunately, for various reasons, including the fees that were mentioned earlier. This offers you an opportunity to get in and grow yourself as a young professional and an individual. Again, unfortunately, things have changed a little bit. We're also seeing younger generations not even consider home ownership anymore, whether it's because they don't want the work or they just feel like it's unattainable for them. While this is unfortunate, there's not anything we specifically can do about that, but this kind of project would help at least give them an opportunity in this town. As Josh mentioned earlier, this would generate $46,000 a year in tax revenue that is currently an empty lot, generating next to nothing. And the fees alone generate $1.5+ million in investment in the city that we can turn around and use to improve other areas. So I would strongly encourage you to look at this and consider it and vote yes.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to the council? Yes, sir. Oh, sure.
Brian Paulson, 206 4th Street Southwest. One real quick question, I don't know if you can answer, but is the EDA appointed by the council?
Yes.
Okay. So Mayor, members of the council, I had a few questions that the council I hope can answer. During the city administrator's 19-minute presentation last week, it was mentioned, and this week, that the EDA has heard from almost every business in the area. Finding new local employees is extremely difficult, in large part due to housing. This was echoed by one of the EDA members that spoke during the public hearing. I didn't make that up. I know you just said that again, but that was in my speech from last time. So I've looked through every EDA minutes from July 2023 and the 2023 summary report under the business retention and expansion section or anywhere else. I could not find housing mentioned once. Is there someplace other than the minutes that this is documented? I would feel that this would apply to this request tonight as well. I was wondering how many variances this project has requested. I know the Eber project had quite a few, almost double the old maximum zoning unit density of 22 units an acre to 40 units an acre. Setbacks, I did notice on there, it didn't say 30 feet setback, so I'd assume no. Parking stall minimums, stall size, setbacks from the road, minimum unit size, to name a few. Are we expecting this project to have some of the same building and zoning variances? In council meetings and attached documents, it was stated that the Eber developer has a partnership with the unnamed property owner. Is this the case with the Yellow Tree project? Last meeting, the resolution that was posted online was switched during the meeting. I did not see a new one passed out or available to the public. If that's happening tonight again, I request that it be available to the public as required. I have a few comments about the tax abatement request. The city administrator pointed out that there's currently a 655 unit demand shortfall according to the Scott County Maxfield study. It's been stated that New Prague needs rental housing so badly that we need to help it. Well, that's how businesses work. They build when there's a demand, not before. If that were the case, we'd be giving an abatement to every business that built. The abatement approval seemed to really push that we have a need for this, and I'm concerned that we are setting ourselves up for approving every rental housing request until we have 655 rental units built. I'm asking the council to not deny this abatement. There's cost for granting this. If not, then why do residents pay property taxes? It's paid for the city services that they use. It seems that we have set the precedent. The city needs to tread lightly because it seems to have made the case that we approve based on a rental need. And I completely agree that if the developer says that there is a need, I completely agree that there should be. And I welcome them. I totally am open to the project and welcome to our city along with our fees and other expenses that we have to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address the council? Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay, I take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? Sean made the motion.
I'll second.
Maggie seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make note before you.
Oh.
You did have 2 letters that were given
Yes.
by the public. Both of them in support of this particular abatement.
And then I will give you this also for the minutes from Mr. Paulson.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're here for, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, yep, go ahead.
Josh, when you introduced this before, you said something about amenities extra from the base amount, and I didn't track with you. Do you recall what you were commenting on when you introduced that?
Yes, and so when we spoke with Scott County about the valuation on this project, the way they graded it out or estimated a valuation was based off of a, I don't know if basic is the correct word, but an apartment building that wouldn't necessarily have a lot of amenities. I know this particular project is talked about maybe having a pool or community rooms, that sort of thing. And the evaluation given to us by Scott County does not include those particular items. And so the abatement request by the developer is not based off of those particular items. Should they include them, it could likely rise the valuation, but the abatement request would still be based off of a not having them. Does that make sense?
So when you refer to the abatement request, are you using a dollar amount then? Not a
Yes.
percentage?
Yeah, well, yeah, so I'm using a percentage of 75% over 15 years.
Of the base amount?
Yes, of whatever the valuation is, up to the rough, just over $2 million mark. And so the way we got to that $2 million mark was we took that base valuation, 75% over 15 years would get you to that $2 million mark. And so if the valuation goes up, the 75% remains the same, but it just pays towards that $2 million, and whenever this request, the $2 million gets hit, then the abatement is just done. Higher valuation means that it would likely get paid off sooner than 15 years.
If you could remind me on the last abatement that we discussed, was that 100% then 66 and then
33, correct.
And not now, but could you kind of give me a comparison sometime of what the difference totally of the percentage abatement of those two different sliding scale and this straight line method on it? And then the 167 number, is that apartments or is that including the townhome?
As far as I'm aware, and maybe they can correct me if I'm wrong, it's just apartments, correct?
So the townhomes is not part of the abatement,
That is correct.
except would that be something that could be included as a requirement?
That I'm not entirely sure.
We'd probably have to run that by Baker Tilly. Sorry, we'd probably have to run that by Baker Tilly, to see if that would be required. I don't know that would be required. Obviously, it's on the same parcel of property. This property does need to be platted. I think we mentioned that earlier, so, I guess we can pose that question on, if it's platted with multiple lots and, if that weighs into what has to or, may be excluded from that overall valuation. We'll ask that question.
And then, I know Michaela provided that, and I'm assuming you're gonna ask her to update that then?
Yes, and like I said, that was part of our, it appears that there's a need, and I'm assuming there will still be a need even with the added units. But without seeing a pro forma from them, I didn't feel comfortable making an exact recommendation tonight.
Well, I think that the, Michaela's analysis, I know that we're probably dancing around confidential issues, and that topic comes up with, transparency. Why do we, interesting question about our BRE visits and what we can document, what we can't when we do those kind of visits, but I think it's important that we, at least I corroborate, the statement about the need from some of the BRE visits, because I've done them myself, so I can corroborate that information, whether it's documented in writing or not, but,
And Bruce, just for clarification, BRE means,
business retention
And expansion.
expansion.
thank you, just for our audience.
So those are meetings that the EDA tries to do as frequently as possible. We work with the Scott County CDA to set up businesses, and we'd love to visit every business in town. Some of them are harder to get a hold of than others, but when we're able to, we sit down with them just to discuss kind of where they're at as a business, and if there's anything we as a city or EDA can help them to make them as successful as possible.
Getting back to, I guess, my last request or comment was Michaela's information on the analysis. Previously, at a previous meeting, I requested if we could get a little more detail on the analysis, especially on the debt service coverage, because she cites that as one of her kind of but-for test things. And she comments as far as what her conclusion is, but I'm not seeing any kind of analysis. And I understand we have to dance around maybe confidentiality with some of the forecasts and things, but we'd get a little more detail as far as what is the debt service coverage, and with this abatement, what would it go to, or what is a standard that she's using to make that analysis for industry standard for debt service she cites, and some of those kind of things. So
Yeah, I can,
there's some very legitimate questions that it's hard to, I'm obviously a little more background in the finance part, but to try to describe it to some other ones, it'd be a little more easy for people to see where we are coming up with a need.
yeah, we can
cite
certainly
them,
talk
so.
to Michaela about that and see exactly what her background work is on this.
I would agree that we're not in a position to really take any action since the request is being changed.
Do you need something, some direction?
I mean, not necessarily, like I said, we've held the public hearing and, yeah, I mean, I guess, so the request is before us tonight with a resolution. I don't think we necessarily need to, if you would like to gather more information, I think a direction to us just to gather more information at this point, maybe to table the resolution, just so we have it formally on the record that it was not passed nor denied, and then we'll go back and try to gather more information and bring it back to you as timely as possible.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that. I agree that we need more information and more current numbers and to table the resolution.
And then Josh, one last thing, I'm sorry, just maybe later on describe why we're looking at a straight line method, not the sliding scale as the other one was.
Okay.
Does anyone else on the council find it funny that Scott County's saying that we need 640 some units, but have already told us no, that they won't participate in this? And they put it solely on the taxpayers. And then, second of all, if the businesses, including some very, very large businesses, are having trouble finding people, would those businesses step up to the plate and perhaps, instead of going to the taxpayers, maybe the businesses that are saying that they're having problems, maybe they'd like to invest in some of this as well, instead of putting it again all on the homeowners that's currently here. We've seen, last week we had heard that there's a unit going up in neighboring Belle Plaine without tax abatement, so obviously it can be done. I don't have the specifics of that, but it does show that there is developers out there that are willing and able to do it without taxpayer money. And then, and don't get me wrong, I would love to, I'd actually support the building coming in. I'd just like all the fees, just as anybody else would, without giving back $2 million or potentially $2 million of taxpayer money. It'd be nice if we had the 2 million plus all the other fees. Because as the audience might not know, later in this meeting, we're gonna be looking, it's been proposed that there's an 11% increase on our levy. And now we're giving more money away. So I just have a real tough time with that. I'd like to see the units come in, and find a developer that would be willing to do it. Obviously, like I said, they can. And I'm very disappointed in Scott County when they tell us that we need X amount of units, but then they do nothing to help us. So, that's my statement.
Okay.
Well, I just want to, at least my characterization of that, Scott County isn't telling us to do anything. They hired a third party that did a market study, and this information is coming from a market study. It's not coming from Scott County saying, hey, New Prague, you got to do this. So I would dispute the characterization that you're putting towards that. Scott County, just like other counties, have their own way of looking at housing, and they do support housing. They've supported our apartment building that we have right now, and we partner with them on that. So they do, in certain cases, do. This one, they are not. I'm not familiar with what they've done with the abatements in the past, but I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this abatement, but I do have a different perception of how I would characterize what we're looking at here.
Okay. And I forgot to bring in, this council gives the EDA $75,000 a year for their budgetary purposes, maybe they could partner with and give some of that back, or use that money to help offset some of this, along with the chamber. Just an option that nobody ever thinks of, but.
Well, here again, city council approves that budget, and you're well aware of what this the EDA does and how it spends its money and what we ask them to do of it. And the industrial park and the tax capacity that's been increasing because of the improvements that have been done there and the building that's occurred there. So if anything, that's a success to show that it's helping the residential taxpayers of New Prague. So I'm not sure where you're coming from there. 75,000 isn't gonna support the budget then. Where would you come up with the balance of that money if you take it away from it?
I'm just saying, there's other options and there's monies available. And right now, I think you're sitting at, the EDA is sitting at have not used all their $75,000, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the latest budget. Do we know what their checking balance is? The EDA?
I don't know roughly what it is off the top of my head. I know to finish out the industrial park project, they did drain that down quite a bit at this point. So it is, I'm guessing if I would look at it today, it's probably less than it was a couple years ago before we finished out the industrial park, but I don't know that exact number off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, again, just, there's other options out there. I'm just willing, you know, some of the people that seem to be for it and have heard this, if they'd be willing to step up themselves and not
So-
just put it all on tax.
Yeah, so of note, I mean, the commercial taxpayers do pay taxes.
Right,
They-
yeah.
They pay double, so it's not like it's completely on the backs of residents. The businesses and of town do also pay
Right.
taxes as well, so.
But maybe they'd like to contribute as well, more, if they're in such dire straits. And the EDA as well.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna postpone that resolution, or,
That would be up to the council.
okay. I'd take a motion to postpone or table that resolution.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Sean seconded it. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item is a THC violation appeal hearing. Do we have anybody here? Okay.
Yes, so, 1319 Woodfire Tavern, as you can see in my memo,
Yep,
we issued a violation, for an offense back in August, for serving THC without a license. I did send them an administrative citation, which has been included in your packet on the 13th of September, with kind of laying out the procedures, for, why we were issuing the violation, and then kind of what the next steps were, either to pay or to appeal. And 1319 Woodfire Tavern did end up requesting an appeal to that citation. As I said, I've attached all the documents. Ultimately now the decision is in the city council as to whether to uphold the citation or to rescind the citation. And I guess of note, for your guys' information, once the Office of Cannabis Management is fully operational at the state level, they will be taking over all low-dose hemp licensing, which is what this would fall under in the future. Until that happens, though, it is within the city's jurisdiction. So I don't have a formal recommendation on this due to it being my signature on the administrative citation. And this would be, I guess, a decision of the council at this point, so.
so they're appealing it.
They are appealing the citation.
What grounds?
So the grounds, is there anyone here to speak on behalf of 1319 Woodfire Tavern?
No.
Okay, from what I'm being told, they are appealing this on the grounds that they were told by city staff, that, we would be informing them once they needed a license.
Saw that.
And they are also appealing on the grounds that, this was a self-report on, hey, do you guys have a license for this? We are currently serving and we don't know. So that is what they are appealing And then, Chief Applin can, I guess, add any information if he thinks I left something out, but I feel like that pretty well covers a quick summary on that.
Do you have anything?
No, that summarizes it. I think that's the, I guess the contested portion of this is those facts, so.
But if they're not here to appeal, I don't know how I mean, they're giving up their right and it stays as is, isn't it?
That is up to the city council to determine at this.
So just to recap, they contacted the city and asked if there were any licensing requirements because they were selling the product.
Is that correct, Tim?
And they're,
Correct.
okay, and then you made a visit and confirmed in fact that, okay.
Yep. And I think part of this is it stemmed from the state reaching out as well and indicating that they needed to check with their local municipality for any local rules and regulations that they need to follow. And they, during the investigation, they were not, also, they didn't register with the state. So there was two, which isn't our, that's not within our jurisdiction, but that's a state. So there were two, I guess, shortcomings there that they essentially told me that, no, we hadn't done either one of those, so. I could understand if maybe they were told by a city employee that we would notify them, but I again, that employee no longer works here, so we're not able to verify that, but to not register with either after they're notified by the state to do both, I think that's kind of just odd to me.
Could you explain that a little further, what you just said? So they received notice from the state of Minnesota?
So, yeah, so they reached out, the state, when they started to get the beverages from their distributor, the state reached out and said that you will have to contact your municipality for any local regulations or permits, et cetera, and you also have to register with the state of Minnesota, and neither one of those got completed before the sale or offer for sale.
Okay.
So do you know what spurred them to contact the city after they started selling it?
I think a previous violation in town.
Okay.
So I guess I can say at this point, if you'd like more information from them, we can certainly, I can table this and I can reach out to them and see if we can reschedule this, but I will certainly leave that up to you again.
And you say that because you feel there'd be different information forthcoming? Or
I am not entirely sure. I thought someone was gonna be here this evening, and so, yeah, that's where I'm at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I guess I do find it odd that it's on our agenda and yet we don't have a representation from the business. And so I would like to give the business an opportunity to explain the situation and how we got here. My immediate understanding is that the distributor may have contacted the state and indicating that they were selling these beverages to this business, and the state reached out to the business and indicated they would also have to contact the local municipality. I don't know if that is the right course of events or not, but
was there a distributor involved in this?
Tim, did I misunderstand?
No, I don't think it involved the distributor. I think it was the state that reached out as the THC and the Office of Cannabis Management got, as soon as it got passed through the legislature, that the state reached out to businesses that could potentially do this.
Okay.
Could offer them for sale.
Okay.
And said you will have to register with the state and also check with your local municipalities about local ordinances and permits and things of that nature, so.
Okay, so they were just given information
I
ahead
think
of
some
the
guidance
fact.
from the state, I
Yes.
think would
Okay,
be fair
that
to
makes
say, yeah.
sense.
Oh, do we have a certain time, once they request that we have to act in?
Oh, we do not, just in a timely manner.
Okay.
I mean, I don't.
I guess I don't have a problem with you reaching out to them and.
yeah, I will see if we can get that set up on the next meeting, just to.
All right. Okay, going on to the next item is the Wold Police Station update, design update. Hello, you feeling better?
Yes, I apologize for.
No, don't apologize, it happens.
Well, Mayor and Council, it's nice to be here tonight to give you an update on the design progress for the addition to the fire station that we are doing for police operations. So where we're at in the design process, have finished up the schematic design and design development phases of the project. We've got a design update for you tonight. We've started our coordination with our mechanical, structural, civil engineers. And so you'll see some of that progress tonight. And really tonight we're looking for any feedback from the council and approval to move into the next phase, which is the construction document phase, which we would then move forward with bidding documents at that point in time. And so the site that you see here is what our current proposed solution is for the building, which has the addition on the south side of the building onto the existing fire hall. As we've talked about in previous meetings, we are maintaining the existing fire hall and we're repurposing the current ambulance garage that's on the south side of the building and adding some additional space, which I will point out when we get to the plan drawings. So we are going to reconfigure the front parking lot a little bit to improve some of the public parking to be more focused on the front entry to the police station, but still maintaining access to the fire station at that location. We are planning on having a separate drive area to connect to the squad garage that you see located there so that we can have a good and safe separation between the public parking area and the vehicle circulation area for our squads. We are proposing a secure parking area on the east side of the building in order to accommodate the employees for the police department and get those vehicles out of the front parking lot. We don't anticipate any changes to the north side where fire operations comes and goes. Their exit strategy and return strategy and parking for the volunteers will stay as it is today. So as we look at the floor plan of the building, what you see here is just a more updated and detailed version of the schematic design solution that we had shown previously. Some of the changes that we've made have come out of quite a few conversations with the chief and his department to make sure that as we look at the entrance sequencing, the security of the building, and where we have offices located, that those are appropriate not only for today's needs but also for the future. And so on the west side, we'll have a new entry vestibule that'll bring us into a lobby area that will have an interview room located in that location. A public toilet will be there as well. And then we will have a window similar to what we have here where the records team will be able to interact with the public when they come into the building. That will be our location where we will provide security there so that the public and the staff areas are separated during business hours. We have put some provisions into play related to having a safe area where people can come to the police station after hours and be able to communicate with dispatch to be able to have an officer come to the station when normal business hours are closed. Off of that same area, we are going to be creating a link between the existing fire station and the police station so that, and we are going to be repurposing the existing garage that's in the building right now into our training and defensive tactics area. And then off of that defensive tactic area and directly to the east of that is where our locker rooms will be. So we're kind of taking advantage of some toilet and changing rooms that'll be in the defensive tactics area. that will also pair up nicely with our locker rooms. And so we have a locker room located just directly to the east of that defensive tactics training area, right off of the main circulation area for the police department. We are planning right now to have just a common use locker area with individual changing rooms and showers for the police department. That way we have the greatest flexibility for changes in staffing between male and female officers. And then the red area is where we are relocating the ambulance garage. This has been downsized based on previous conversations, so it's just a 2-bay ambulance garage that connects up to the building and will give them access back into their existing area and the existing fire station. So there's no changes to how they operate in the building. In that center area is where our patrol area will be located. So we'll have flexible workstations located in that area for the patrol group to do reports and stuff like that. And then directly off of that is a conference room that can be used as a general use conference room for the police department, but also be used for briefings as needed. We have offices along the west side for our patrol sergeants, our investigator, and our chief and lieutenant. And then right in the kind of the heart of the building off of the garage is where our new evidence storage and process area will be. So one would come into the new garage. They would bring in evidence into that area right off of that main hallway area there. We'll have an interview room and a holding area located in that area along with a small toilet. And then we have our kitchen and break room area kind of centrally located in that area. And then the gray area is our squad garage, so we've tried to make that as compact as possible, understanding that any growth in that area would occur in the future. And so we're preserving some space on the site should we need to not only expand the internal workings of the police department, but also expand the garage. This is a concept rendering that we had shown to the council at the conclusion of schematic design, which would show a complementary addition to the fire station utilizing similar materials of precast and metal panels, but emphasizing the new entry so that we would have a clear identifiable location for the public to come to the police department. This is a rendering, off of 4th, off of Highway 21, looking at the back area of the building. Again, the addition is just intended to be precast metal panels and complementary brick to the existing fire station. This next rendering is a more current rendering of where we are today, but you can see that this view of the building is looking at that connecting hallway between the fire station and the public lobby for the police station and our reconfigured public parking area located on that side of the building. And then here is a view of the Highway 21 side of the building showing that relocated ambulance garage, our mechanical spaces, and then our outdoor space off of the break room, and then our garages for the police garage located at that location there. So we feel like we're in a good spot design-wise. We've had a lot of really good meetings with the department, have made some really good and efficient changes to the floor plans since the schematic design stage. And so what we did was about a month ago, we sent it out to our cost estimator to take a look at where we are from a budget perspective. And so we've added a column to the budget slide that we had previously presented. If the council recalls, the original planning budget for construction was about 9.4 million. At schematic design, we were hovering right about 10 million. Understanding that we needed to continue to look at ways to reduce cost, I'm happy to say we are back down to the 9.4 million. In construction, our project costs are also tracking a little bit lower. Those numbers are budgetary numbers that just get firmed up the further we go into the project. We are still carrying a healthy contingency to account for any sort of bid changes or final things as we go through the final phases of design. So we would expect some contingency going into construction, but that's another area that may change. And then for our furniture and equipment, that stayed right about the same at about $1 million, giving us a total project cost today of $12 million in comparison to the $12.37 million at design development and slightly below our original planning budget. What we're seeing in the market right now is some softening of the bid market right now. Contractors are interested in picking up work. So we believe that this is positioned quite nicely for bidding should the council choose to move forward with it. And where we are at today, like I said, we are planning on pending council approval, moving into the contract document phase to finish up this year. We'd like to have the bid documents ready for review by the end of December 2024. With potential bidding in January of '25, getting out in front of the spring market would put us in a good position to start construction in the spring of 2025. And we're anticipating, that this project should easily be done by the fall of 2025. So with that, I would stand for any questions that the council might have on the presentation we have and kind of next steps in the process.
Does council have any questions?
Just chipping away at it, aren't you? A little at a time. We haven't even given the full yes yet.
What?
We just keep chipping away at this and getting closer to closer, and we haven't really, as a council, discussed if we're even gonna do this now, or.
So the last time, remember, we did talk about taking this next step as a council.
No,
getting
yeah.
to this part. So I did also include some documents in your packet. I know we've always talked about what potential tax impacts would be. The document dated October 30th is based off of what our net tax capacity is this year, as well as where we are currently taxing. And the document dated October 31st is based off of where our current estimates are landing with our budget for 2025. Which is why the October 31st document is going to show slightly smaller numbers just due to our tax capacity rising over the course of 24 to 25. That makes sense. But
So if I understand what you just said, that you would estimate here 50.42 as a proposed tax capacity rate, but you would, all things being equal today, it's gonna be a little less than that because you didn't factor in next year or an increase for this year?
yes, so if you go to the document that's dated October 31st at the top, there should be two documents in there. The one you're referencing is based off of, we have as of our numbers today, 2024.
Okay.
The other document is off of our estimates based on our current budget estimates for 25 as to.
Those documents next to each other?
They should be if you're scrolling through.
Mitch, can you put that up on the screen so people in the audience can see? Or
Here, I can throw it up. If Mitch wants to.
I think it's on page 93 is
give
what
me
I was
control.
looking at.
Yeah.
That's what I'm at.
93 and 97.
97, okay.
Small.
I got that going on. So this is the particular document that is based off of next year's proposed budget at this point, just showing what potential valuation increases would be if you are in a $350,000 home. The current cost of the project would be expected to increase your property taxes $256 per year, $21 per month, over what your estimated taxes would be at about $1,800. Does that make sense, Dwayne? You've got to look like that doesn't make sense.
Well, what I'm trying, this is on top of the levy.
Correct, so this would be like any other sort of bonding debt service that would come into effect.
Okay.
This particular, so this would be a bond, so if we took it out in 25, we likely wouldn't start paying on it until 26, like most bonds. But we only have current numbers to work off of based on current increases.
I just looking at the general number, it goes from 50.4 to 52.5 with the tax capacity increasing. So there must be more in that calculation then, right? Or what am I missing? Am I reading that right? The tax capacity rate goes from up to 52?
You are reading that based off of what it says.
I thought it would go down with the tax capacity going up.
I would certainly have to say I will check on that because I agree. Because the tax increase is certainly smaller on the 25 at 7.67 versus the 7.99.
Right.
Oh, I think that, well, okay. So you see our tax capacity on the 24 is 11.3-ish, we'll
Yep.
say, just for talking. On the 2025, let's say 11.8.
Yep.
Okay. Working off of our current proposed budget, our current proposed tax rate is 44.8 versus the 42.4 this year. And so that's where that difference is coming from. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember right, when we first started talking about this project, I believe the estimated tax increase was about 15% over the current rates. And so that number has come down. Sorry, I didn't have this number off the top of my head. Oh, so now I'm just talking out loud here. They are estimating a slightly average higher interest rate than what we initially were talking about. I think we're at about 4% before. Now we're at 4.66% is what they think we may be getting out on the open market.
So the tax rate increase is 7.67, is that correct? Before, just out of the gate?
Yeah,
Before
somewhere
we
between 7.6 to 8%, depending on where we land this year with the budget.
Just for the police station? That doesn't include health, wages, and benefits for staff?
Those numbers are just for this project. That is correct,
Right.
Sean.
Yes.
So I guess, are there any questions about what John presented at this point?
Not from a design perspective.
No. I just have, the different types of bonds that because this is just for a general obligation bond, right? I mean, we're not,
That is correct. We'll kind of get to it later a little bit, but I would assume that we'd work with our financial advisor to figure out the most effective way to potentially pay for this and what our options would be.
yeah. Okay. All right.
And why, I'm trying to think, I know the current situation isn't the greatest, but it works. I guess I still,
I mean, I think the argument, Sean, is that the current situation doesn't really work. Between having an evidence table that is a card table, if I'm aware.
well, we just spent money to lock it up, and it seemed like it was okay at that time, that it was, the evidence chain of command was improved. And I'm unaware of us ever having a situation where we've lost a case because the evidence room is not somehow secure.
I mean, I guess there are best practices for anything, and right now it feels like we are woefully behind in any of the practices, in space, and in just about everything else. And I understand this is a big ask for money. It's one of those asks where you hope you take care of it, and you're taken care of for decades to come. But just looking at how construction costs have increased year over year over year for most of time, the ask is only going to get more expensive as we go.
Well, we've seen them come down already a little bit from the initial one, so who knows?
I mean, the point being that this building is likely going to cost more if we started a year from now or after going forward.
Sure, but we might have more apartment buildings and people paying taxes and.
And yes,
Oh, wait, they're not gonna be paying
and that may
taxes.
take place if we start now, and stuff can still start to fill in. There's always, we could always come up with what ifs, or what if we wait for one more business, or 10 more houses, or.
Well,
Yeah, but it's, and the answer we get from staff, it's only $312, or it's only $400 a year. But it's not, it's $400 a year. And then the county says, it's only $400 a year. And the school board says it's only $400 a year. And it just keeps going.
I get that, but I want to make sure we also don't chop off our own arm, because we can't control what the county or the school district do with their particular stuff.
No, but I can control, or we can control this, I should say. But.
well, I'd like to see other options, obviously, than just the general obligation bond.
Oh, you mean for funding?
For funding, yes. And then I think we gotta take into consideration with the hope of that, cause it's not 100% because it's the Senate, it's
There's
the Congress, but.
Yeah, we are still potentially in the running for
$1
money.
million.
Coming from U.S. House of Representatives from our work talking with Representative Craig.
So.
And then, like you said, I mean, just continuing to, kind of going back to the other thing, continuing to pound the EDA in terms of getting business growth and expansion within the community. Keeland Homes is looking at potentially building some homes. As things come on the tax rolls, they help contribute to helping pay down some of this stuff.
And I think there's other funding mechanisms out there that might be more creative than just a straight up GO bond. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I am not a funding expert on that.
No, and I'm not either.
So I guess I think so if there are no general questions on the design, I think the concept is, do we continue forward with construction documents? Is that right, John?
In order to stay on track, to be, hitting the bidding market at the right time, we would need to continue through construction documents for the remainder of this year, yes. And we would certainly be coming back to the council again before, our process would be is we're gonna do another estimate before we ask the council to go out to bid. That's really kind of the point where it would be, once we let bids, it's, the project is basically moving forward unless the bids come in over, or the council decides to cancel the project at that point in time. But in order to get to that point, we've got quite a bit of work to do to get the drawings and specifications ready for bid market, and then we'll need all of the next couple of months to get that done. So yes.
And what is the estimated cost for that next phase?
I believe it was in our original fee letter. I don't have that handy. We had outlined it in our previous agreement as to what the next phase would be as far as our fees go. Our overall fee hasn't changed from what's in the budget. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall the figure for that phase.
You remember an estimated date when that was, John, by chance?
Our total fee for the entire design all the way through construction is $658,000. So The next phase is 40% of that total.
240, 250?
Correct.
So they need authorization for that. Okay.
Yes.
What's the,
I'd like to be everything for everybody, but I don't think we've reached a point that we absolutely have to have this $12 million.
Well, I'd certainly like to see some options for funding it.
financing? Yeah.
I mean, I would say at this point, I mean, I will certainly be digging for creative options on funding it. I'm assuming that we're trying to hit a window here on bidding for best possible bids was the point of the
Yes, yeah,
mid to late January
that's understood.
time frame at that point.
Quite some time ago, I think, in my mind anyway, and I think I verbalized it too, that I was hoping that we would be able to, or at least my support was that 50% number for tax capacity. So I'm a little disappointed that our projections are up to 52.5 now, so I'm not sure what to think about that, but that is, it is what it is, but it is higher than I would like it to be. So I don't know if there are other financing or interest rate issues that you could figure out a different way of doing it. And we've already crossed the bridge of not thinking we can make it a smaller project or reduce the cost anymore. So I guess to me, we should see, is there legitimately any other options that would reduce the cost for financing or other ways of doing it?
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head at this point. Like I said, that would be something I would certainly talk to our financial
I
advisors
know that
about.
that different than Eilers, they presented different ways of bonding for it. One's through the EDA, one was by something else, and
Yeah, and I'm
There
not
was like
sure-
4 or
sure
5
what
options,
all
but I can't
what all the
remember.
advantages are of
Yeah.
the various
but
options for going forward and how that could work.
I'd like them to look at our,
No, and that, yeah, I mean, that would be something, assuming we continue forward with this, that we would start working with them immediately, I guess, on working on those various options.
My reaction, I'm not sure if this is coherent though, but is basically to table the discussion any further until next meeting or until we can get.
till
some
we
kind
get
of
those
feedback.
estimates.
Is it realistic that we can achieve any kind of savings any other way to reduce the tax capacity increase?
So I guess my only
Or
question.
tax rate increase, right?
Yeah, my only question to that would be is if, let's say they come back and say, no, we really think that like this is the best deal running right now. Is it gonna change our decision on the police station at that point?
Well, it does give me great pause. I was thinking 50% would be on the high side. And obviously we have regular operating expenses that brought our levy up to wherever it is. But I'm also believing that we're gonna have additional levy increases in the future as well, so it's, I would love to think our tax capacity is gonna grow 800,000 every year, but I don't see it happening unless you guys are projecting a big increase next year. I'm not sure where it would be coming from next year, so the best case is, if we get up to 12 million or 12, whatever. Or you guys thinking differently?
Yeah, I mean, without the top of my head, I can't think of anything. I know we have had a fair amount of business expansion across the community in the last year, and we may continue to see that. It's really hard to.
Well, yeah, housing has been
Yeah, I mean,
nothing.
housing, we may get nothing. Housing, we may see stuff. We don't know where that's gonna end up landing at this point. And I guess, I mean, certainly understand the increases, Sean. I live here like you do, and I see them like everybody else. It's just, I guess part of me worries. I worry about it is the cost of being a city is maintaining a police department, and obviously you don't want to be spending money needlessly. But I mean, I know when we looked at our last facility study, they kind of recommended that we had a lot of needs across the city, and we did meet some of them with the fire hall, and I think at that point we also built the public works garage out there. But the police station was mentioned 25 years ago as being undersized and outdated, and it came back again with the same problem. And I just worry that the longer we put this off, what the cost is going to be eventually when we decide to finally take a bite of it.
Well,
and obviously, I don't disagree that it would be a big ask, but and then at that point you start speculating. In 15 years, do they go, thank goodness they did that because what the cost is now, or not? It's entirely possible that we're cursed and I'm run out of town and don't have a job here anymore. But at the same time, I know that the amount of officers that we currently have squeezed into a very small space is taxing on officers. And in today's climate where you can get a job just about anywhere, I'd hate to lose somebody because we did go through a lot of turnover for a while. And I do think that the close quarters and outdated facility had part of that, was one of the factors for that reason. So
I do think
this to me feels like one of those solutions. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. This to me feels like one of those solutions that you bite the bullet, you take care of it, and we are potentially sitting all right for the next 30, 40, 50 years in this, and we can look at other stuff.
Well, as I think about it, it's, if we don't do it, that doesn't solve the problem. We still have an identified problem. That was our number one priority. Dealing with the weaknesses in the police physical location and the handicap accessibility and all the other issues that were laid out in front of us. That still has to be addressed. If we don't build a building, we still have to address those same issues with where we're going to put people in, and to do it not the best in class or anything, but better than where we have now, where we're failing in a lot of areas as far as physical needs or handicapped accessibility and the storage and the security of the site. I do not like, especially in my mind, what we're trying to do is all about safety. And the people that are protecting us have some of the least safe quarters to run a police. It's not a good situation. And so even if we don't do this, we still have to do something to upgrade what we got. So that, to me, that's what we have to kind of weigh the balance here. I don't believe that you can just get by and then just wait for some serious issue or security issue to come up and then fix it. But I do think, at least my position is that we should see if there's ways we can get this tax rate decreased.
I think we should get on the legislative bonding thing too for this. Whether
we can try, but I know they're backlogged by about 3 sessions. I think when we talked to them last year, was it?
I know. I'm not saying that.
I'm just realistically thinking out loud. I think when we talked to one of our legislators last year, we were basically told, well, we've got so much backlog, we can put you on, but it may be.
But that's a whole different,
years.
That's a whole different thing. And if we don't put our name in it, we'll never, we just got to do that, I think, also. I mean, that doesn't stop the project or anything. That doesn't, but.
It just gets us in the queue.
it gets us in the queue, and, I know cities have gotten money back where then it was, after it was approved that they were able to do it, so.
So the next step is to go back to determine other ideas for funding.
Mhm.
And so I don't know that we are able to give you an answer tonight on the next step, to spend money of something that we're not sure. So if it's, 2 weeks till our next council meeting,
It is 2 weeks to our next council meeting, yeah.
so.
We will make adjustments.
I don't know what kind of answers I can pull
Well,
together in 2
we'll
weeks, but
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, I mean, if that's the wish of the council, then I will do what I can, but.
Would please.
Well, at least we have the design.
I mean, I've heard from 2 people, is that,
Yep.
I'm looking for a majority at least here
Yep.
to make sure we move.
Is that okay?
I've got,
for him to get the
you, I've got
money? Or
Dwayne
get
and
the-
Maggie.
Get my numbers from our people?
I'm not sure what you're asking of me.
I'm asking, so I've heard from 2 of the 4 people up there that they would like to wait at least 2 weeks for me to
And have
dig
our
at
list.
financial resources.
Yeah,
And I'm just kinda looking for a majority at this point.
sure, I didn't say it clearly enough then, but
Yeah.
yeah, that would be my position too.
Okay,
And I don't know if Eilers will be on board that quickly. We haven't even approved.
this sheet came from them. They turned this around in about an hour when I asked them for it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, John.
Thank you, John.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yep, thank you. The next item up is ordinances for adoption. This would be second readings on both of these. I would take a motion on second reading on ordinance number 352, the mayoral term. Somebody want to make a motion on that?
The motion would be to have a second reading.
Yes.
Okay, I make that motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm. Did I?
So general procedure would be, if there's any discussion on the item, and I can certainly give more information, based off of what's in the packet, and then it would be to approve on second reading or deny on second reading.
Okay.
Just to make sure that people, I wasn't quite.
Yeah, I
sure.
was gonna ask for discussion after
Oh.
the motion, so.
Oh, yeah, I didn't, so I wasn't entirely sure what was being motioned per se,
Yep.
so I wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page.
Okay, is that okay? To do,
I would-
I mean,
Bruce, what was your motion?
I understood it to be a motion to approve a
second reading,
Okay, okay,
Yes.
no, that's fine.
Okay.
and then is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and Maggie seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The second item is, a second reading on public sidewalks ordinance.
So Mr. Mayor, I just had a thought on this.
Yep,
Could we possibly go back and amend that decision? Mayoral discussion, that is based off of a city charter recommendation, which has to be a 5-0 vote to pass.
oh,
We are I just realized we're currently short a
yes,
member.
you're right.
And so, I realize we're slightly out of order of procedure now, but I would recommend amending that, assuming that I would assume all 4 have to be okay with that, to table that discussion until a future meeting when all 5 are in attendance.
I'll make a motion that we table it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Sean, seconded by Maggie to table it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. What about the next ordinance?
That is fine. So the reason that one needed 5 votes is because it's within the city
I
charter that it has
understand.
to be done that way.
What page is that?
101.
Which one are you looking for,
The public sidewalk one.
Oh, then that would be
Page 104.
104.
Okay. Oh, I got out of order here, but. There we go.
Okay, I'll ask if there's, before,
I don't really have anything to add other than the ordinance was introduced at the last council meeting, and we have published the notice as required by law before we could hold the consideration for approval here tonight for that ordinance for, again, sidewalks on both sides of new development, with the exception of cul-de-sacs less than 300 feet in length, and in residential developments under 3 units per acre for density.
Okay, does somebody wanna offer ordinance number 353, for a second reading?
So moved.
There's been a motion by Maggie, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Sean seconded it. Any other discussion or questions on this? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item is the adopting of the Scott County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan. That's like the 300-some page document that I looked through. Yes. And so I'm understanding it right, this has been kind of since 2021, and then they're gonna redo one in 2025?
Yeah, it's a 5-year, a 5-year rotation, and I'm not able to provide any reason as to why we didn't adopt it in 2021. I reached out to emergency manager with Scott County, and he didn't have any insight at that time, so this does kind of handcuff us in the event that we have a natural disaster here, or something happens, would be limited on the funds that we could request from the federal government, so.
I mean, now it's gonna be,
Unless we pass it.
unless.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct, without adopting this, that is
Yep.
correct, so I am currently on the committee, working on the next one, it's already been started, so we get and it won't be until 2026, but giving input from all cities and entities that want to contribute to this, and I've indicated that I would like to be a part of that, so we will have a seat at that table and provide input as we are able.
That's good, because I noticed as I was reading through the introduction and parts of the plan that it didn't appear that New Prague had any
Correct.
input whatsoever.
Yep.
Which kind of disappointed me.
So I think we've had two meetings now that started here this summer, so.
Okay.
When I go through the appendix, G, and specifically New Prague, are we following this then, the appendix and these things?
Yep, we are.
And
And there's,
so this is gonna be updated in the next year or two, this
Yes.
section?
Correct, yep.
And then, are there things here we should be having on our visioning statement? Are there items that we should follow up on, or?
That's part of this group, is identifying things that we can accomplish, things we'd like to accomplish, and it's much like a visioning document, and a lot of it, as you know, comes with funding. And so some of these things you put into your visioning document and request the funding, because there's a lot of federal money and state money available that can help fund a lot of these projects. So identifying those and then moving forward with those plans as you're able is kind of the plan of this group. Because it doesn't necessarily all encompass New Prague, it's kind of on a priority list, so it might be a bridge that's failing somewhere in Scott County, or it may be a floodplain that needs to get worked on, or it may be a tornado siren somewhere, or things like that. It's kind of identifying where our needs are and what we need to accomplish as a county, and then identifying the resources then to make those improvements and upgrades as they're needed.
There's so many of these items that are showing deferred. Are you concurring with those deferrals?
For the most part, yes, because they're large, they're large projects, and to be quite honest with you, you can't just say we're gonna write a $4 million check next year to do this. So continuing those things and keeping those on our list and identifying what's important and what needs to happen opposed to what we would like to happen.
Like some of these as an example, like assist business schools, special needs population on post-evacuation routes. That's probably a low priority, so I guess that doesn't need a lot of attention, but I guess my comment is just, is this a living, breathing document?
Yes.
You're getting it to that point, I guess, is what I'm kind of
Correct.
understanding.
Yep.
And that I don't see any updates to anything, so, are you, eventually, I would think that we'd have like a living, breathing document that we're updating, like our visioning statement, and kind of doing and seeing if there's other people in the city that need to be involved in it and do it, and.
Yep, and we, to your point with the school, we have updated and we are working on those plans with the school for those responses and things of that nature. If something was to happen, identifying, evacuation plans, relocation, things like that we have been working with the school on as well, so.
And I'm sure
that's
you're doing things with first responders too.
Correct.
And so I'm not sure if this is the document that's leading those efforts, or you're doing the efforts and they kind of fall in here. But
This is hopefully leads those efforts, so we can identify, again, what is important and what are we trying to accomplish as a county and as a joint response, because what we'd like to have is everyone is similar in a response as we can, because as we all know, when something bad happens, it's not just gonna be New Prague that's responding, right? We're gonna need assistance from Belle Plaine and Scott County and Jordan and Prior Lake and Savage and Shakopee. So part of that is that unified response that we're trying to all get on the same page with. So we're all working off of the same plan so we can all respond the same way.
Does LeSueur County have one of this?
I know we approved something like last year, but I can't remember if that was this.
Yeah, and I'm working, so LeSueur County right now, their emergency management is going through a shift, and it's been changed to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
So I have to reach out to them and see what their process is gonna be going forward. So to answer your question, Sean, I don't know
Okay.
right now. So they used to have their own independent emergency management entity, and that is now, within the last month, just been taken over by the sheriff's office.
Okay. Well, I noticed that on page 130, it lists the population of New Prague, and it lists only the Scott County side.
Correct.
So, in reality, is the entire town covered by this, or just to Main Street?
This would be just the
North of Main
Scott County
Street.
side at this point.
Okay.
So again, I'm gonna reach out to LeSueur County and see what they have and what direction they are going with this, because I don't know that this group exists in LeSueur County right now. So if it doesn't, I would like to have that conversation, identify what can we do to make this happen for both counties.
Okay, thank you. I'm the only one on the LeSueur County side. I'm the only one on the
Yeah,
LeSueur County
but
side.
still, no, that's a.
Hey, Matt and I are over here too.
Well, yeah.
Flapping in the wind with you.
I'll call you
And it always comes from the south.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I would take a motion to adopt this plan,
So moved.
or, yeah, for the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, adopting resolution number 24-11-04-01. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item is the conditional use permit for the expansion of a healthcare facility.
Yes, and I do have a quick PowerPoint. Allow me to run through it again quickly. At the planning commission meeting, in October, we had the request for this conditional use permit for the expansion at 301 2nd Street Northeast, and I know they've done the groundbreaking, actually. There's a little miscommunication between the state, who's doing the building permit review as a non-delegated project locally, and the need for land use approval. So this is kind of why the groundbreaking happened, and then we're reviewing it through the conditional use permit review process now. So what they are looking at is a 6,400 square foot addition on the east side of the existing campus. They will complete oncology and infusion services in that expanded area. They do provide those within the building currently, but this would expand that from a 3-day-a-week to a 5-day-a-week service that they will offer mainly within this addition here. The conditional use permit is required. We have RL 70 single family zoning, which is actually our smallest single family district by minimum lot size, and healthcare facilities are a conditional use in this district. The planning commission held a public hearing on October 25th, and we only had one comment from Ken Potts, who's a facility manager with Mayo, regarding storm sewer. There's a question on, there's kind of a depression on the property there. There's current patio that's kind of below there as well. And it was noted that they will connect to the storm sewer system with a new catch basin in that area. And then also commented on the landscaping, which would be significant for the people getting the infusion and oncology services, as well as obviously available to the general public, which we saw in the rendering. And then finally noted on some geothermal well work, and there was general comment from the Planning Commission about noise. And they noted that they have to keep noise and then emission pollution down because of the existing ongoings at the hospital, and obviously they need to keep that running as they normally do. So there was recommended approval 4-0 from the Planning Commission at the meeting. And just a quick overview, so the rendering on the right side of the photo here does include all the significant landscaping for those patients having services done. Largely a residential area. We've got Queens Court to the west, or the east, excuse me. So this residential area was noted at the Planning Commission that the addition kind of steps down in height, and it's a good transition as you get closer to Columbus. We know that there was available parking at 7 different parking lots around the facility, and that the addition was not significant enough that they would be going over the minimum parking requirement, which they do meet, and they actually provide more than the minimum and has plenty of parking around the facility, with the majority or the main parking lot directly south of 2nd Street for those that come in on daily visits and patient visits. Just another schematic drawing showing on the east side of the facility there, with the landscaping shown in schematic form as well. And then just to note that the basement will be largely a service type oriented, not physically have people in it. So utilities would be in that area, a little bit of a kitchen expansion, dining area on the basement floor, some offices, and then the upper level is really where the oncology and infusion services are going to be expanded. Just some renderings here of the internal space and how that will look in, again, rendering format. Beautiful addition to the building in staff's opinion. And then finally some photos of the east side of the site as you can see it there today. So they did take down a couple of trees in this area, but they're replacing the 2 trees with 5 that will be added to bolster that landscaping. So again, staff and the Planning Commission do recommend approval of the resolution approving the Mayo addition. They did not have the ability to have anybody come to the meeting to answer any questions you should have. So should you have any and not wish to forward that, we could table the item. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward at the Planning Commission meeting, so I can stand for any questions you might have.
So Ken, does the city have to approve the construction documents, you know, the building plans?
We do not do the construction documents. This one is not a project that they have delegated back to us. If you remember, we have a limited delegation agreement with the state of Minnesota for public and institutional, basically school and hospital projects. We have been delegated many projects over the past couple of years for other work at the facility, more internal projects. This one, they've decided to hold on to that, and that's their prerogative to do that. So we obviously miss out on the revenue on this project, but we have plenty of other inspections and work that we are currently doing as a staff level elsewhere in the facility, so.
Okay, it just seemed odd that this particular addition is actually covering up the windows on the first floor, so I wasn't sure if there was a concern with, you know, accessibility to get out of those windows.
No, I wouldn't believe so. Any windows that were covered up are actually entering directly into the addition on what would be the main floor of this addition, and then the windows are remaining visible and open for would be the second floor of the house.
Because it looks like it's split there,
Yeah.
right?
It does.
Yeah, but it's connected, right?
Connected.
Yep,
Okay,
they're
okay.
connected.
Okay. I would take a motion to approve the conditional use permit C5-2024.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Sean made the motion, seconded by, Maggie. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is establish a date for special city council meeting to canvass the November 5th, 2024 election results.
I can take that in working with Scott County Elections, which is basically the entity we have to wait to make sure that they have everything ready. They're indicating that they will not have materials ready for canvassing for the council level until Friday, November 13th, or excuse me, 15th. So that's when we have to hold it. So it really is a matter of picking the time and setting that date. We've done it before at 7:30 in the morning, but any time earlier the better. It takes maybe 5 minutes to canvass results at that point. So, just with the holiday of Veterans Day and other
Understand.
things that they have going on, that was kind of the date they told all the cities to do the canvassing.
What's the purview of the council? I can do it anytime, but.
I prefer not at 7:30 in the morning.
No. We could go a little later.
A little later would be fine.
Staff is available that day at any point.
Okay.
Preferably not a late night meeting, I guess.
No.
And the mayor brings donuts, right?
Sure, I can.
Usually.
It's early
I
enough.
think I did that last time.
I think he has
Yeah,
before
I
when it's
did,
in
and
the
then
morning.
you weren't here. That's what it was.
That's because it was 7:30, no.
Does 9 a.m. that work?
Sure.
Yeah, that day work?
I mean,
Mine
for me, it
works.
does. You?
It's fine.
Yep, on the
Okay.
15th, yeah.
9 a.m. Friday morning.
All right. The next item is the city municipal advisor recommendation.
Yes, similar to when we went out to look for an engineer here a couple years ago. We did put out a request for qualifications for financial advisor services. We've been using Baker Tilly for a number of years, and Springstead before that, who's ultimately, I believe, purchased by Baker Tilly, if I know my history correctly. We did reach out to the 5 firms I have listed in there: Baker Tilly, David Drown, Ellers, Northland Securities, and R.W. Baird. Ultimately, we received 3 responses: Baker Tilly, David Drown and Baird kind of paired together, and then Ellers. Here, almost a month ago now, we did end up interviewed 3 firms now to kind of see who may fit with what the city is kind of looking for in a firm and guidance into the future. Ultimately, the 3 firms interviewed well, showcasing their various services. And speaking among staff, we kind of felt that Ellers was the best choice going forward. Not only did they kind of separate themselves on the services they're able to provide, such as long-range planning, but that they also offered as many things that we could potentially take advantage of going into the future, and offer a hierarchy of people to make sure that we've always got somebody available. So I guess I would, as a staff recommendation, I would recommend going forward with Ellers as our municipal advisor kind of for the rest of the year and then into the future.
So basically immediately.
Yes. Well, so I will say, I'd caveat that Baker Tilly has been working with us on the tax abatements. And especially that remaining one, until that's wrapped up, however it goes, they've kind of got all the background information, so I'd recommend staying with them for that particular project, but using Ellers otherwise going forward.
I know Ellers has been around for a long time.
I believe they are one of the larger players across Minnesota.
So, any questions on that from the council? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve Ellers as the municipal advisor for 2025 and into the future. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Bruce made the second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, Settlers Park Prairie Restoration Project.
Yeah, so I have a couple of items related to this. So the first one is a termination agreement with Rockleaf Water Environmental. We had been awarded them the project earlier this year. Myself and Matt Rinda and Kier Chapman had been out on a few different occasions with them about the disappointing results they had with the herbicide treatment of that area to take down the weeds and other growth in order to prep it for a fall native seeding. If you remember, we were awarded $40,475 for a DNR grant with no city required match on that part, and numerous attempts to have them correct the issue. Ended up having our attorney with Kennedy and Graven reach out to them, and Rockleaf Environmental ended up saying, yeah, well, we're okay with just walking away from the project. You don't owe us anything. And they recommended that we enter into an agreement, and that's what the attorney drafted up and has in front of you here today. So that's one of the two items. Second part of this was, who are we going to get to do the work? We have this grant money hanging out there, and we do want to get the project done. So we went back to the firms that had submitted proposals. The very close second firm was RES. They were just a couple of $1,000s more than Rockleaf Water Environmental. They simply just didn't rank as highly because of the extra couple of $1,000s. They had good references, and we've worked with them on other native prairie plantings, most namely around city park entrance signs. But we contacted them. They're willing to pick up the project at their original contracted amount, which does fall under the grant amount of, and they would do the project for $38,394, which is covered 100% by the grant. So that is what we're recommending, to enter into the professional services agreement with RES to pick up the project and complete that work. They may be able to do a little bit of prep work here this fall, but most likely they'll pick it up in the spring. We do not believe we'll lose any time in completing the work by the end of 2026, when the grant requirement deemed that we had to have that completed. So just a little bit of a delay in getting the native planting in. We're hoping this fall to get it done, but it'll probably happen in the spring now.
Okay.
So it's a lot of background work that was going on there, and it hasn't looked great. And we do plan to communicate whatever's decided here tonight with the residents around that area, because quite frankly, it has been dragging on.
And it's caused angst there.
Yeah, we had to kind of run through the legal channels to get that wrapped up, and quite frankly, it ended up being a lot easier. They just said, yeah, we're walking away. You don't owe us anything for the work we did.
So do we gotta approve the termination agreement and then also approve the?
Yes, you've got the termination agreement in front of you as one item, and then secondly, to enter into the new service agreement with RES to complete the work.
I'll make a motion to approve the termination of agreement with Rockleaf Water Environmental.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
And Maggie seconds it. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to approve the professional services agreement with RES.
Okay,
Second.
and Sean made the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right. Select consultant for preparation of unified development code.
Yes, I'll take this one as well. As the council recall, we had $40,500 included in the 2024 budget, and then another $40,000 from ARPA funds allotted to complete the Unified Development Code as shown in the visioning document for 2024. We did have the RFP out during the month of September and into October. We ended up receiving 4 proposals. We did interview and have the top 2 firms come in for a final presentation. We had the mayor, myself, Administrator Tetzloff, and Planner Keir Chapman for the final interviews. And based on the interview with MSA, who had completed the comp plan, and Bolton and Menk, staff is recommending to offer the contract to Bolton and Menk, as they were basically ranked nearly as high as MSA.
Yep.
But they were $22,887 less, and we could not justify, a couple of points different in their overall ranking. and they interviewed quite well with their approach that they were looking to take with working with the general public for getting input, and then obviously the council and planning commission and other city staff as we work through updating the zoning and subdivision ordinance. So they were able to get the work completed by the end of 2025 per their proposal, and for those reasons is why we recommend selecting Bolton and Mink to complete that project. So I do not have the contract actually here tonight available for you. We could certainly bring that back at a future meeting, but at minimum, we'd look for a motion to move forward with Bolton and Mink and bring that contract back for final review and approval.
I'll say that, or you can certainly guys authorize the mayor and myself
Sure.
to enter into a contract based off of the terms that have been shared as well.
Yeah, and I was impressed with them. They have a city planner, or back up. Their project manager was the city planner in Prairie Lake up until, what, 2 years ago?
Year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago, and he was there for 20 years, so, I mean, the guy knows the area and, you know, has the feel for the area, so that really made me comfortable. So,
I'll make a motion to select Bolton Mink for for the consultant for the Unified Development Code. And also include in the motion, the responsibility for our city administrator and our mayor to enter into an agreement with Bolton Mink.
Second.
okay, there's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. E, 2025 improvement project, sidewalks.
Yes. Real quick on this, as you guys are aware, back when we were talking about the 2025 project, we had a few citizens come speak to the council as well as a petition submitted to the council not to include sidewalks on, or a petition to not include sidewalks on Lincoln Avenue North. I didn't talk. I apologize for the microphone. I did attach a copy of that petition here, as well as a map kind of showing where those particular people live. And I guess at that meeting, the council did to vote to move forward with the 2025 project as presented by SEH, our city engineer, that included sidewalks on each street. At the last meeting, we also had a resident from Lincoln Avenue North come to discuss sidewalks, expressing their belief that sidewalks were not needed on this project. And so I just wanted to make sure before so at this point, the project is being designed with the sidewalks on it, because that is where city council's landed. Obviously, at any point, they can be taken out, though at some point, the grading kind of ends up sitting where it's at, and you would, if for some reason they were removed, the project would be done just without the sidewalks there. So I guess I kind of laid out my reasons in the memo, why I certainly support adding sidewalks, not only for residents now, but certainly residents into the future. I myself have run down Lincoln Avenue many times. I tend to prefer to try to stick to streets with sidewalks, but that particular part of town, especially over the last couple summers, did not have a certain amount of sidewalks, and so I had to pick and choose with where I was at. But sidewalks are certainly a vital part of growing cities. Anecdotally, I know we've recently talked with the school district, and staff from the school district shared their just thanks that the city has continued to put sidewalks on there, especially as they've worked with finding grants for safe routes to school, and just kind of mentioning that those sidewalks certainly help with those grants. They also mentioned that sidewalks have made bus pickups and drop-off much easier. On the streets that have sidewalks, kids tend to hang out on the sidewalk waiting for the bus, whereas streets without sidewalks, many kids end up waiting out in the street for that bus to arrive. So while I certainly understand that people worry about how they're going to be able to clear the sidewalk or maintain that sidewalk, I guess I would certainly recommend continue placing them, as has been the habit of the council for a number of years now.
And just a point of information, I think after the last meeting, there was another resident from Lincoln that emailed the council members in support of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Did you get that? Did I send that to you? I can't remember. Yeah. But yes, you're right, I was gonna bring that up. I'll see if I can find that.
Do we know approximately how many households are on Lincoln that the sidewalk would affect?
I think Ken's doing really fast math in his head right now based off of his map. Lincoln's been the only one that's request.
About 30 households?
Around 30 households.
Okay.
What did we ultimately decide on? Was the city gonna do the repairs, or were we gonna take a look at that?
City code currently has
The
that
homeowner.
The homeowner
Yeah.
does it, but it was certainly something that we talked about as we go into our Unified Development Code update.
Okay.
That could
Change
be one of
that.
our major conversations, that we could have as to whether we want to continue with that path. I do know that we have done that before or we have required residents in the past, but I don't think the number's been that high. Matt can correct me on that.
Yeah, we've only sent out 2 letters and had residents only fix 2 sidewalks in the last 15 years.
Okay.
So it's not like we're out there every summer. I know some cities will hairline crack in the sidewalk and they'll mark it out, but I think ours is basically that sidewalk's gotta be pretty well gone
Okay.
before we get in there.
In addition, there's some sidewalks that are been in bad repair for a long time that we've never asked the residents to fix.
Correct.
So,
Yeah. Okay, now we're down to
Well,
miscellaneous.
Mr. Mayor, so I guess just bring it forward, and I know now that we've had multiple citizens act, I think we should probably at least make a statement as a council, one way or the other, that we're going to continue, with the sidewalks on that Lincoln Avenue project, or a different decision. I think at this point, just because we've had multiple people ask about it at city council meetings.
well, coming here tonight, I just reinforce my support for them, seeing people in the dark using the new sidewalks. And I thought that's great that we have those sidewalks there, and when you can't see people, these people are walking now on the new sidewalk. So I do feel it's a safety issue, and I'm saying the same thing I've said before, that I'm totally supportive of them for the safety issue. So I would support continuing them in the 2025 project.
I would too.
Yeah, and I'm also in support of sidewalks, and it's not just now, but also, as Josh, you've pointed out, you know, homes are sold and new families move in, and I think it's important, especially for those individuals, to have use of the sidewalk for safety issues, and also to get out and walk. It could impede some people that they don't want to walk in the street, so I'm in full support of them.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, now we're,
Need a motion on it?
No, I don't think we need a formal motion.
now we're down to miscellaneous discussion. I'll go around the horn here. Bruce, do you have anything?
Nothing, no.
I don't have anything. Sean?
No.
Maggie?
I do not.
Josh?
I do not.
Ken?
Oh, come on.
No, yeah. Well, when he comes to 2 meetings a year, we gotta let him talk.
You notice he didn't call you by your name. He forgot it for a second.
I need 5 minutes of your time. This is kind of important, or I need to give you just a quick update on what the Utilities Commission and staff has been working on. As you guys are aware, New Prague currently has 17 megawatts of local generation here. That is under contract with our power supplier, Simpa, and they pay for all the expenses to operate that facility, including four full-time employees. New Prague also has the benefit of being able to use that plant during times of transmission outages, virtually eliminating extended outages for the residents of New Prague. Due to recent capacity requirements and the shift towards renewable wind and solar resources, there's a severe shortage of dispatchable generation like we have here in New Prague. And when I say the dispatchable, that means that it can be run no matter what the time of day or the weather conditions. Simpa, our power supplier, has decided to offer a 20-year capacity contract to its member cities that would like to expand their generation facilities, not only to cover their needs, but also to cover the the city's give the city an opportunity to expand their local emergency requirements and essentially have a contract to cover the majority of bonding requirements to build a new facility. It is estimated that a new proposed project in the city of New Prague could cost upwards of $20 million. After the $20 million contract, the utility would have the asset that would be paid for and would yield over $1 million a year in revenue for the city of New Prague. The pictures that I included in your packet are just some depictions of what a new facility might look like. It shows 4 generation units. That's what is being proposed for the city of New Prague, and a building which would be similar to that. It would be a little bit larger here in New Prague. And it would be located by our west substation over here by what used to be the old fitness center, that area where our substation is there in front of it. That substation was actually designed to have a project like this in place and or to add another substation transformer in the future as New Prague grows. Really what the gist of me talking about this is at a future meeting on the behalf of the Utilities Commission, I will be asking the council to approve a refunding resolution that will help us to proceed with that project. And then also for the future sales of a revenue bond in the neighborhood of probably 18 to 20 million, which would be an electric revenue bond that would be more or less paid for by the contract that we would enter into with our power supplier. They would make the annual payments for that. Obviously, New Prague has a commitment to maintain that building, and we would probably put in some seed money because the Utilities Commission feels that it's very important to continue being able to offer these services to the city of New Prague like we have in the past, that being having generation that can totally carry the city of New Prague when there are outages, transmission outages. I just kind of reflect back to this recently, these storms that have happened. You know, residents in, my daughter lives in St. Louis Park, they were out for 3 days.
Yeah, with that little snow.
With a little bit, you know, and it was just a storm at that time. So New Prague's residents have really benefited from us having these kind of facilities here. Also, it's kind of a critical time that us as a member of SIMPA, we're going to pay for a facility like this no matter, it's going to go somewhere in one of the member communities. It could just as well be in New Prague. And then we have that benefit for virtually, it's probably a 40-year unit, you know, so we would have that, have its use. So really what I'm really looking forward for from the council is that I need to know that your support will be there in the future for when we have to go through the bonding process. And so the Utilities Commission can authorize these kind of projects, but ultimately when it comes down to borrowing money, it's the decision made by the city council. You may think I somewhat have the cart ahead of the horse here because lead times on getting generation equipment is about 3 years out. So in other words, the Utilities Commission has to make a commitment to a project like this now, and it won't probably be in service until in 28 sometime. But we'll probably need bonding for it in about a year's time. So I need to just make sure that I keep you abreast of what's going on and to have a commitment in a way that you would support the bonding when it comes time. It doesn't, talking to bond counsel, it doesn't affect the city's ability to borrow money because it's a revenue bond to the electric department. So, and it would be under from our contract with our power supplier. So it's a guaranteed contract. So really very, very low risk on behalf of the city and a lot of benefit. So I'm just here to share the information. The commission's gonna have to make some decisions here fairly soon. We've actually gotten some bids in, so we know how these kind of projects are running as far as cost. It's about the only way to do it. We've had to put some seed money towards it. So far it's looking really good and our power supplier is really in support of it. So, and kind of will do whatever it takes to have cities put forth projects because it's needed. Couple questions I get once in a while is just why would we be building a fossil fuel power plant in an age where we're trending towards wind and solar? And actually it's facilities like this that we're proposing that allow wind and solar projects to be successful. When the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, we need something to back it up. And it's getting really close, especially in the wintertime now, to have enough generation, dispatchable generation to call on to keep the lights on. So I know I've thrown a lot at you, and you guys have talked a lot about monies tonight already, but I don't know, Bruce, if you want to add anything to it, but.
No, I mean, the demand for power is just increasing and will project it to increase quite a bit in the future. And New Prague, I think, is in such a good spot having generation and also as a backup. And a lot of places don't have that. So we have better reliability than a lot of other places. And I can point to cooperatives in other areas that don't have that.
Right.
But this is unique, as far as me, it's kind of unique. I haven't, not that familiar with this, but to have a contract from SIMPA that will basically pay for it. It is a revenue, but the revenue that we're dedicating is coming from a SIMPA contract. So the revenue is the money that they're raising. That's what's supporting it, not necessarily our utility revenue from the local market. So
yep.
I think, and obviously this is going to be looked at through attorneys and made sure that we have a guarantee, and to support the bond issue, it has to be well documented that SIMPA is the revenue source. And we would be pledging those revenues on the bond issue, so it wouldn't be anything with the general obligation of the city.
Will that second facility, so we'd still keep the first facility, this was the second one, is this your current staff that would just move over and operate that when they needed to be operated? Okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty modern. I mean, it's pretty well controlled remotely, so we'd be able to control it with our current staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you said that, but SIMPA reimburses the city for the staff that are used. So
yeah,
it's like we're almost affiliate of SIMPA.
Yeah, but we're not talking about adding 4 people.
Correct.
They just pay for 4.
Yep.
Okay. Right. No, sounds like a win-win. Does that go against our bond limit or credit? Would it hamstring us in any other way?
No, that's where, yeah, being that it's a revenue bond, it operates on its own because it's operating, enterprise bonds operate a little differently. And that's kind of where we talked about creative financing earlier, that some people will get creative with revenue bonds through their EDA. As an EDA might own a city hall and rent it back to the city. It ends up being revenue neutral all over the place, but you can do it creatively to line up debt in different areas.
So do you need a motion then, or just,
Josh, I shouldn't really need a motion now.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
I'm just here.
More, unless there were major concerns.
information and a consensus? No,
Yeah,
makes
I just
sense.
need to make sure that everybody's kind of on board so that going forward, I don't want no surprises.
Yeah,
right.
So in a year or so, when
Right.
he comes back to visit us again, that you aren't surprised to see why.
I'm in support of it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Tim?
Nothing.
Matt? Matt and I were on the radio today, so he talked all about streets and plowing and stuff like that.
Oh, and I missed it? Oh, shoot. No, kidding, Matt. What was, any good questions? Any call-in questions or?
No, we don't do call-in.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Okay.
but,
Oh, you interviewed me.
yeah, I interviewed him.
Oh,
Put
did
him
you?
on the hot seat. Yep.
Okay.
Chief? Okay, thanks. Alrighty, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Should we go into the next one?
You wanna take a short break?
Does anybody want to take a quick break?